Most distancing rules in the nation are lifted. No more caps on social gatherings or restrictions on business hours. South Korea and the U.S. started their annual combined drills. It will not involve any field troop maneuvers. Top new convoys of the two sides met, with Sung Kim emphasizing Washington's ready to talk with Pyongyang anytime, anywhere. With Ukraine still under Russian invasion, more than 2.6 million people have fled the country. There are reports of Moscow planning to bring in Syrian fighters. Hello, week's off to a smooth start. I'm Daniel Che here to bring the latest. Let's begin with our top story. Welcome changes are implemented from Monday. Most social distancing rules in South Korea are finally lifted. This comes after more than 2 years of trying to stem the spread of COVID-19. Choi Min-jung starts us off.
I'm currently at one of the most crowded streets in Seoul near Gangnam Station, and as you can see behind me, it's fully packed despite it being a Monday evening. South Korea has lifted most of its social distancing rules, which had first been in place since March 2020. Starting Monday, there are no more size limits on social gatherings, and businesses can open for 24 hours a day. This means people can gather with as many people as they want without curfews. And many seemed excited.
It's great because it feels like we are returning to normal life. It used to be difficult to even have dinner with friends, but now I'm happy because we can stay out until late in this nice weather.
I've waited a long time. Restrictions on business hours were lifted once in November, but I'm extremely glad that they've been lifted once again.
Large events will no longer be limited to under 300 people, meaning rallies and religious services can be held at full capacity. And from April 25th, which is next Monday, people will also be able to have something to eat while enjoying movies and concerts indoors. However, people will still be required to wear masks both indoors and outdoors for at least another 2 weeks. But the mask requirement for outdoors may change after the government assesses the country's virus situation over the next 2 weeks. The public had mixed reactions surrounding the mask mandate.
I think I'll be shy at first, but I want to breathe in fresh air without a mask on.
It's not a concern for young people like us because we recover quickly, but I think it is basic manners to wear a mask to protect the elderly.
The lifting of social distancing measures comes on the back of declining COVID infections. South Korea on Monday reported less than 50,000 new cases for the first time in over 2 months. And the average number of infections per day last week dropped by more than 30% compared to the previous week. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Pundits are hoping lifting virus restrictions will boost domestic consumption. However, soaring inflation could put a damper on such expectations. Ji-young explains further.
With all distancing measures lifted, there are long queues at popular restaurants and supermarkets are packed with grocery shoppers. Related industries are gearing up for an increase in customers.
We are preparing many events and shopping perks for our customers, so I believe those who visit will be able to have more fun and enjoy shopping more.
Although the removal of COVID-19 rules is likely to boost consumption, consumers are at the same time alarmed by high inflation.
The prices of vegetables have gone up a lot. So has rice and so have meat and fish. With sesame seeds so expensive now, I think the price of sesame oil has gone up 40 or 50% compared to last year. And for a baguette sandwich, it used to be about 6,500 won. Now I think it's almost 8,500 won.
South Korea's consumer prices are soaring. In March, the country saw consumer prices rise by more than 4% from a year ago for the first time in over a decade. Consumer prices have seen on-year rises of more than 3% for a 6th straight month. An expert says rising global inflation and soaring energy prices due to the war in Ukraine are putting the full recovery of consumer spending in doubt.
Due to the higher inflationary pressure, consumers' purchasing power could be lowered, which could lead to a smaller boost in spending.
The Bank of Korea said in its latest report on consumer prices that high inflation could last for a while due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the lockdown in Shanghai, and South Korea's lifting of social distancing measures. The central bank noted that it should actively implement monetary policies to rein in rapidly increasing consumer prices. The Bank of Korea last week raised the key interest rate to 1.5%, the fourth rate raise since the BOK slashed its rate to a record low of 0.5% in 2020. 엄지영, Arirang News.
North Korea appears to be preparing for a military parade to mark the 90th anniversary of the founding of the regime's People's Army. This comes as Seoul and Washington begin the annual military drills. Bae-eun-ji has the latest.
Next Monday, April 25th, will be the 90th anniversary of the founding of the People's Army, a key event for North Korea. There has been a lot of speculation that the regime will hold a large-scale military parade on this day. One military source said Monday that North Korea has been seen preparing for a parade with a range of military equipment at its Mirim airport in Pyongyang. This included armored vehicles and transporter-erector launchers used to fire missiles. The source also noted that thousands of troops were spotted at the airport and that as many as 20,000 personnel could show up to the actual event. At the parade, the North is likely to showcase its intercontinental ballistic missile capable of carrying multiple warheads and its submarine-launched ballistic missile. This comes at a time when South Korea and the U.S. have begun their joint military exercise, which started Monday. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff announced the day before that it plans to conduct computer-simulated combined command post training with the U.S. for 9 days, until April 28th. Aimed at enhancing the combined operational capabilities of the two allies, it said the exercise will not involve any field troop maneuvers. As North Korea has long opposed such joint drills, all eyes are on whether the regime will carry out further provocation during the combined training. In fact, the North said it had tested a new type of tactical guided weapon on Saturday to boost its nuclear capabilities. Regarding this, Seoul's Unification Ministry on Monday urged the regime to return to talks.
Once again, we urge North Korea to immediately halt actions that raise tensions and cause insecurity in the region and return to the negotiating table as soon as possible for peace talks.
The South Korean military also confirmed that it had detected 2 projectiles that flew around 110 kilometers toward the East Sea, at a speed of up to 4 times the speed of sound. Speaking to reporters on Monday, a military official said although it still needs to conduct further studies, they appear to be ballistic missiles. Experts say it appears to be a new type of surface-to-surface short-range ballistic missile that has only 2/3 of the power compared to its KN-23 missile that it launched earlier in January. Bae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
America's top nuke envoy is in Seoul to discuss North Korea issues, mainly the regime's latest weapons tests. Sang Kim once again called on the reclusive state to return to dialogue, but also emphasized Washington will deal firmly with provocations. Kim Dami shares with us his remarks.
Washington's top nuclear envoy Sang Kim says that the U.S. is ready to talk with North Korea whenever and wherever, urging Pyongyang to come forward onto the path of diplomacy. He said this after meeting with his South Korean counterpart Roh Kyu-duk on Monday, 2 weeks after they last met in Washington.
And I think the fact that I'm back so soon after those consultations is an indication of our determination and commitment to maintain the closest possible coordination with the Republic of Korea on all aspects of DPRK issues and developments.
Kim also made sure to note that the U.S. harbors no hostility toward the regime and reaffirmed the South Korea-U.S. commitment to respond responsibly and decisively to North Korea's provocative behavior in the united context and beyond. Kim further voiced hope of working closely with No and his team during the government transition period. Seoul's top negotiator also stressed that close coordination between the two will be crucial as they navigate this increasingly precarious period, saying the two sides shared concerns that the North's activities raising tensions on the Korean peninsula are likely to continue.
We should still leave the door open for dialogue. We should remain vigilant and guard against every possibility and leave no room for any miscalculation on Pyongyang's part about the enduring strength of ROK-US alliance.
No then said the two sides have agreed to take strong actions against the North at the UN Security Council if Pyongyang violates any resolutions, such as by carrying out nuclear tests and ICBM launches. Kim's 5-day visit to Seoul will include meetings with South Korean Unification Minister Lee In-young on Tuesday and with officials of the incoming Yoon administration, possibly with the Foreign Minister nominee Park Jin. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
It's been a month since President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol's transition team started working around the clock on a blueprint for the new administration. Some big announcements expected in the coming weeks, but policies in real estate and housing could take some time. Lee Kyung-un provides a glimpse of what to expect.
Yoon's transition committee will be announcing some of the new government's key policies over the next 2 weeks. A full list will come on May 2nd, 1 week before Yoon takes office. There will mainly be policies that don't require any changes to the current law. That's because the soon-to-be main opposition Liberal Democratic Party holds parliament majority, while Yoon's Conservative People Power Party will hold the government.
The scope of policies could be limited due to the difficulties in passing laws, so we will push for those that won't require legislation so we can get things done in a speedy manner.
But the much-anticipated housing policies, the biggest concern among South Koreans, are not likely to be announced yet. The committee is trying to avoid any confusion that may occur due to a sporadic release of information, especially with related discussions expected to take place at the upcoming parliamentary hearing for Land and Finance Minister nominees.
Due to the possibility of an overlap or a change in messages which could cause chaos to the market, we are strongly considering the idea that the new government announces a final comprehensive outline to the real estate policies.
However, the transition team is already fine-tuning the roadmap on COVID-19 for the Yoon administration's first 100 days in line with vision of science-based virus prevention. In addition to the immediate agendas, the transition team said it is setting up long-term goals that may require more than the 5-year presidential term, yet are deemed necessary for national development. While leaving just 3 weeks, the committee's chair vowed to maintain all-out efforts, saying the successful launching of the government largely depends on the success of the transition team. And how the Yoon government kicks things off is especially important with another test at the polls coming up in local elections on June 1st, just weeks after Yoon takes office. Lee Kyung-un, Arirang News.
At a diplomatic forum, President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol emphasized that economy and security are inseparable. During the session, he suggested this will be a key focus of the new government. Yoon Jung-min brings the highlights from that event.
President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol emphasized the importance of South Korea's economic security for the incoming government, saying economy means security and security means economy. At the Seoul Forum for International Affairs on Monday, he said the vision for economic security discussed at the forum seems to reflect the tasks of the new government.
새 정부가 우리 경제 재도약을 위한 기틀을 닦고 경제 안보의 시대를 철저히 대비해 나가겠습니다.
At the forum, one suggestion was to create a task force on integrated economic security under the presidential office to enable prompt pan-governmental responses to comprehensive risks involving diplomacy, security, economy, environment, and science and technology. Also suggested was that Seoul should host a global forum on democracy and the future. Participants pointed out the increasing global uncertainties affecting South Korea and the international community.
Today, due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the international community is living through a new nightmare resembling the return of the law of the jungle and the imperialism of the 19th century.
Participants included former Environment Minister Kim Myung-ja, the chairman of the Asan Foundation Chung Mong-jun, and a number of former government officials and university professors. From the business world, participants included the chairman of the Korea International Trade Association Koo Ja-yeol and SK Group chairman Choi Tae-won. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Fighting continues in Ukraine. A number of missiles struck more cities Monday morning local time, while the besieged Mariupol continues to resist Russian assaults, having rejected demands to surrender. Lee Si-woo brings the updates.
4 rockets struck Lviv on Monday morning local time, a city near Ukraine's border with Poland to the west. According to its governor, Maxim Kozycki, at a briefing, 3 of the rockets hit warehouses and another one hit a tire repair shop. At least 7 have died, including 1 child, with more injured. The toll could rise as rescue efforts continue. Also on Monday, 2 missiles hit 2 districts in the city of Dnipro in east-central Ukraine. According to the head of the city's regional military administration on Telegram, in one district, the missile hit an infrastructure facility, and in another, railway infrastructure was destroyed. Previously during the war, Dnipro's airport had been damaged by Russian missile strikes. Meanwhile, in the besieged city of Mariupol, Ukraine is continuing to resist assaults after having rejected Russia's demands to surrender. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal on Sunday said the city, which has been surrounded by Russian troops since March 1st, has not fallen.
No, city still is not fallen. There is still our military forces, our soldiers, so they will fight till the end. And as for now, they still are in Mariupol.
The comments come after Russia's Ministry of Defense called on the Ukrainian soldiers in the city to surrender by 1 p.m. local time Sunday. They warned that anyone resisting after the deadline will be eliminated. Russian forces also announced on Monday that the city would be closed for entry and exit. According to CNN, the men in the city would be filtered out, meaning they would be relocated for screening by Russian forces. Ukrainian and US officials have said that Russian forces have carried out filtering of civilians, biometrically screening them and in some cases deporting them against their will to Russia. Lee Si-woo, Arirang News.
And some observers believe Moscow could bring in battle-hardened fighters from Syria to Ukraine. So far, only a small number reportedly arrived in Russia for training ahead of being deployed to the front lines in the Donbas region. With Russia's invasion nearing the 2-month mark, more than 2.6 million people fled Ukraine. Everyone has his or her own story. Our Kim Sung-min met with some of them who have come to Gwangju, South Korea, ethnic Koreans known as Korea-in, to hear their ordeals and the support they received.
Before dawn on February 24th, the Russian offensive began across Ukraine. That's when 42-year-old Korean-Ukrainian Park Tatiana realized her life was forever changed.
I woke up at 5 a.m. after hearing bombing 3 times. I was terrified, and it's really hard to even recall it.
To find safety, she went first to Moldova and again to Romania before she finally arrived in South Korea.
It's difficult to see a war like this in a generation of peace. I just don't want anyone to go through anything like this.
Also landing on Korean soil a few weeks ago is 28-year-old Kim Olena. She had to leave behind her beloved husband in Mykolaiv when her baby started getting sick. She took a 41-day journey with her 72-year-old grandmother and her 2 kids, one who just turned 1 last week.
My husband is not allowed to leave overseas as he has to protect the city, and it was so scary to see all the ranks of troops with guns. I wouldn't have been able to do it if it weren't for my kids.
After weeks of restless nights, they finally found peace in the South Korean city of Gwangju. Gwangju has become home to thousands of ethnic Koreans, Korea-in, the descendants of Korean diaspora in Russia, who were forced out to Central Asian countries as well as to Ukraine. Now, it serves as a shelter for Korean Ukrainians who fled from the war thanks to the Korea-in Support Center located in a small area of the city called Korea-in Village. So far, around 80 Korea-in, including the ones I've met today, have been coming to the support center since they arrived in South Korea. They usually come to express their gratitude and to get basic necessities like clothing and food. When Shin Jo-ya, the head of the center, saw that war broke out, she first wanted to save at least one person. But soon, her efforts were echoed by others who gave their help, allowing her to invite many more, including a child who had her first good night's sleep in days.
The mother said her baby slept well for the first time. Hearing that, I cried with all my heart.
And that support continues to arrive, from a truck full of necessities to helping hands from neighbors.
I heard they are having difficulties with clothing because they had to leave in a hurry, so I decided to join the effort.
Here at the center, refugees can take various programs, like this lesson to help them get a foreigner registration. Half of the kids in this class are evacuees from the war in Ukraine. They'll get to learn about Korean culture here and hopefully will feel at home soon. The center hopes to keep supporting Korean refugees, both those taking shelter temporarily and others aiming to start a new life here. Even though most of them say it is unclear what future holds for them, they all wish to deliver the same message.
When I left the country, I felt so lost, not knowing what to do next. Then I arrived here to receive such a welcome from the Korean village. I truly want to thank South Korea and the people here, and I wish them all the best.
김성민, Arirang News, 광주.
Moving on to other stories now, the Q1 earnings of Korean Air are expected to be much higher than last year. According to Daeshin Securities, the figures are expected to be around 704 billion Korean won, or some $570 million, nearly a six-fold increase on year. The nation's flagship carrier will sharply raise fuel surcharges on international routes from next month. Due to soaring oil prices, the surcharges will likely reach the highest level since the year 2016. For a one-way ticket internationally, the fuel charge could be up to $210. China's Q1 economic growth fell short of the government's target. According to its National Bureau of Statistics, the country's GDP grew by about 4.8% on year. The official target as of last month was 5.5%. Although the figure did beat market expectations, analysts say the numbers don't reflect the effects of the lockdown in Shanghai. China has been struggling to curb its worst COVID-19 outbreak since the pandemic began. Elsewhere around the world, hundreds have died due to floods and mudslides that swept through South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province last week. According to authorities, the death toll has risen to 443. Rescue efforts are still ongoing for 63 people who are currently missing. Around 4,000 homes were destroyed and more than 8,000 damaged. The floods are described as some of the worst ever to hit the province. The government declared the region as a disaster area. The natural disaster also knocked out power and water services and disrupted operations at Durban, one of Africa's busiest ports.
Warm weather will continue across South Korea tomorrow. Daytime temperatures will be warm, with most regions surpassing 20 degrees Celsius. Places like Kimcheon in Gyeongsang-buk-do province will be especially warm, with highs reaching up to 25 degrees Celsius. But keep in mind that wide temperature gaps of more than 10 degrees will follow. Mild spring weather continues, but the air is very dry. Dry weather advisories are issued for much of South Korea, including eastern regions and the capital area. No rain is in the forecast for the time being, so dry conditions will only intensify as we get through the week. With a rise in temperatures, central regions and Gyeongsang-buk-do province will also see high concentrations of fine dust tomorrow. Morning lows in Seoul and Daejeon will start up at 9 degrees Celsius. And as for the daily highs, Chuncheon will get up to 23 degrees, Daejeon 24, Daegu and Gyeongju will be topping out at 25 degrees. Clear skies are in the forecast for the next couple of days. Morning temperatures will get warmer from this point on. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
These are the stories we're following at this hour. From all of us here at Arirang News, thank you for watching.
Find the ways of Taekwondo within yourself. The mind that honors respect and kindness. The valor that